What's happening, people? Back with another reaction, back with some more Bad Religion, and we're going back to their 2007 album, New Maps of Hell. I did want to mention that my plan is to start reacting to more recent or like post 2000 Bad Religion. I've done a lot of reactions to, their older material and sort of their 90s material. I haven't done nearly as many for post 2000 Bad Religion, so I do want to start that. And indeed, I realized I don't think I've done a single reaction for True North, Descent to Man, or Age of Unreason, so I'm going to get to all of those albums very soon. But I wanted to do another one from New Maps of Hell, and I don't know if I've mentioned this specifically, but the albums Process of Belief 2002, The Empire Strikes First I think 2004, and this one New Maps of Hell 2007. I do lump these three albums sort of in with each other. Part of the reason it was because Brett came back to the band in 2002 with Process of Belief, and I mentioned before. I just think the songwriting tandem of Graffin and Gurwitz is one of the things that makes Bad Religion so great. And again, I think the songs and the material was fine. It was good while he was not in the band. But I remember when I heard that Process of Belief was coming out and that Brett had rejoined and they were going to be back on Epitaph, I was very excited. And I really think, again, like even if it's not in the same kind of like interpersonal rivalry, because again, my understanding is that in the early days, Greg and Brett were they were trying to outright each other essentially, and that produced such a good run of songs from both of them that there's, again, like 3 or 4 albums in a row that are just flawless. So yeah, I was excited when Brett came back because I felt like now they're gonna, maybe get back to that absolute elite level of songwriting that they were at for a few albums before that. But also, I do think sort of I don't know, sort of the ethos of the band kind of went back to where it had been before. And again, I'm really not trying to slate the albums on Atlantic. I do like them. In particular, I would say Grey Race is maybe my favorite of those. But yeah, I don't know. As I said, the Process of Belief, Empire Strikes First, and New Maps of Hell, I sort of grouped together, and I really enjoy that period more so than the Atlantic period, and maybe less so than the original kind of run on Epitaph and like Suffer Through. Maybe Recipe for Hate. But I'm very fond of the 3 albums like '02 to '07. So yeah, we're going to listen to a tune on this one, which again, New Maps of Hell, '07. It's called Requiem for Dissent. I'll admit it is one of their tunes that is a bit more difficult to penetrate. I have a sense of, some general themes that it is working with or it explores, but I don't claim to have a like full clear, like perfect view on this one. What I would say is that this was '07. George W. Bush's second term, a few years after 9/11, but still sort of in that cultural, social wake, if you will. And in the aughties in the United States, after 9/11, it became very taboo to be critical of the U.S. either domestically or in terms of foreign policy, and indeed like more conservative and revanchist elements in society basically accused anyone who criticized like U.S. foreign policy, like past or present, during those years of being un-American, of siding with the terrorists, and so on. So the song Requiem for Dissent, I think part of it is getting at the idea that during these years in the United States, it became, very almost dangerous. Certainly, if you were a professional with like entertainment, and you depend on like popular sentiment toward your work and so on. But again, it became almost dangerous to express even a remotely critical word in regard to U.S. policies, again, domestic or foreign. So I think part of the song is getting at that sort of cultural and social intimidation which came in the wake of 9/11, and sort of again this nationalist fervor, cast as patriotism, although again I think conceptually, like semantically, if patriotism is the upholding of or perpetuation of values upon which a country is supposedly founded or expressed, then that's something very different than nationalism. And nationalism is essentially rooting for your country come what may. It's, swinging a flag and singing a national song and sort of like wanting your country to win in various contexts. But that's not the same as patriotism, at least if, in your country it's supposedly, the values of, justice and honesty and integrity and professionalism and so on, if those are supposed to reign, well then just like shouting your country's name and swinging a flag, that's not really patriotism, that's nationalism. And that's not even trying to be controversial, that's just like a semantic distinction. So again, there were many cases where people, even if they were like critical years later, like let's say like '05 or '06, let's say they were criticizing the invasion of Iraq by George W. Bush and Blair and the sort of the coalition or whatever, which basically ignored what the UN was saying. Which, you undercut the authority of the UN, well then other countries are going to do that. And well, then there's, basically lawlessness, and then things are a lot more dangerous and there's going to be a lot more violence. But bottom line, like when that was happening, again, to even say like, hey, I don't necessarily support, going to war for like reasons that don't even seem to be legit according to our own like deputy director of intelligence and so on. But that would be like criticized, like, oh, how dare you? You must hate America. Like, you should leave. Like, you're not allowed to say shit like that. So again, I think this song is getting at that, but it's also getting at a couple other issues. It's getting at the notion of like, how easy it is for demagogues to sort of whip up like populist or basically like faux populist fervor, and again, nationalist fervor, to further their their ambitious aims, whether those be more for like vanity and ego, or they genuinely like have sort of violent geopolitical aims and so on. But yeah, it talks about the way in which populism is used to sort of drown out dissent and sort of raise a sort of like Riefenstahl-esque like nationalism. And then I think also the song, it's, because it's Requiem and it's talking about like the rebel and the revolution, and it's, it's calling them out, but it's also like burying them. A requiem for, the rebel who would like stand up, and a requiem for the thunderclap of the revolution and so on. Like, I'm burying you all. And then there's some lines about this sort of metaphorical cemetery where it's like, oh, your friends and your neighbors, you see them and like demoralizing and sort of like, just not only being intimidated to stop like critically thinking or being dissident, but like self-censoring, like regulating themselves to the point where they're like, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to be perceived as being un-American or whatever, or not patriotic, so you know what, I'm just going to kind of like do my job and not worry about where the bombs are falling and whatever. So again, I think the song is getting at notions of dissidence and the way in which a pall was cast over it as massive fireworks go off outside. That's like 15 huge 20? 25? It's like messing with my brain. I apologize. But again, this is September. It's not July, and it doesn't. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's going on. But again, yeah, it's like a pall had been cast over any dissent, and some of it was internal. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm scared, like I don't want to get fired by my boss because he thinks I'm a muckraker, or I don't want to like lose album sales because like the Dixie Chicks and like other like mainstream and even like very popular in like country circles and so on, and it's like they say like, oh, we don't actually support that war. Boom, their sales drop. They're like shouted down on like radio stations and so on. So yeah, that's what I think this song is getting at. But there's a lot of lines that are like, they have some detail where I'm not quite sure exactly like what they're expressing. So please do let me know if you have a different or like more elaborate or just slightly like parallel take or so on. I would be interested to hear it. But let's get to it. This is Requiem for Dissent by Bad Religion on their 2007 album New Maps of Hell. be listening to see.
Decline, just a victim of irrational design. Requiem.
The oohs and ahs. I love Greg Joyce. It's interesting though, like hearing that again, I almost feel like the chorus was kind of the reverse of what I was remembering. I was remembering it being like, you know, this is a requiem for the rebel, this is a requiem for the dissident, this is a requiem for the revolution. But I feel like it's maybe the reverse. It's him calling it out. It's like, hey, you know, there's a requiem on dissent, a requiem on critical thinking, and so on. So we need to like raise the rebel from his grave. We need to sound the thunder call of revolution, and so on. So yeah, I think like the chorus might have actually been flipped from the way I was remembering it. But either way, I do think the general group of themes I was talking about before the song are what it's getting at. Though again, there are some lines that are sort of like poetic in their rendering, such that, you know, there may be some meanings that I'm omitting or failing to discuss. So yeah, let me know what you think of the tune. Let me know what you think of the lyrics. I do love that guitar solo. I noticed there's more oohs and ahs, more of the sort of like harmonized like backup singing in this one than some of their other songs, and also those like, you know, the shouts, not just the requiem, but there was like, I don't know if it was like a numerical count, but there was like a couple different things that they were like shouting with the backup vocals. I like that. So yeah, another top tune. I think I've only done a few tracks on this record, but again, I'm gonna start going through more post 2000 Bad Religion, and, you know, crack open those 3 albums that I haven't even touched yet. Actually 4, because they're Christmas album. I'm probably gonna wait. I'll wait till December to get to that one. But it's hilarious to me that a band of secular humanist, you know, known for their criticism of world religions, including Christianity and so on, that they actually have done a Christmas album of like punk rock Christmas carols. I think that's fantastic, and just perfectly ironic. So yeah, I'll wait till December for that one. But yeah, like I said, there's like 3 Bad Religion albums of recent years, or relatively recent years, that I haven't even touched at all. So I'm going to start getting into those. So let me know if there's a song on any one of those 3 albums that you'd like to hear in particular. Other than that, thank you for listening and watching. I'll see you next time.